Hello everybody, good morning, welcome to the United Stand. I'm Mark Goldbridge, and finally some transfer news to get excited about. If only Manchester United could do something about it. We'll get into it. Sadiki of Sunderland, Semenyo of Bournemouth, and a hell of a lot more. Merry bloody Christmas. I feel festive today, actually. It's festive Friday. It's festive Friday. We'll have a Christmas jumper day. I know you don't work for me, but I feel like we are a community. We're going to designate a Christmas jumper day where, even though we can't see everybody, we are all wearing a Christmas jumper. So we'll let somebody in the chat recommend a Christmas jumper day sometime next week. We'll do it. Anyway, we're getting in. We're feeling positive this morning. Look, I want to get into the Semenyo story because I feel that a lot of people in the comments are misinterpreting what I'm saying about Semenyo. I would love us to sign him, and it could happen, but there's a reason why I'm quite negative about it. And there's a lot of stuff about it again this morning. And I do agree it'd be a very good signing, and it could happen, but my issue with it I'll talk about. But the big story this morning coming in is around Noah Sadiki, who is at Sunderland. Now, this has got me very excited because I think this is, look, there are potential negatives with this, of course, but we saw Ben Jacobs yesterday talking about Tyler Adams. And we've also got a big update on Mainoo from Andy Mitten as well, who we know gets stuff from within the club. So very interesting what he had to say about Mainoo. But let's talk about Sadiki first of all. We know Man United need to buy midfielders, and we know that we've been linked to probably players that are out of our reach, like Anderson and Wharton and Stiller. So it can't just be Belabor. I mean, if it is Belabor, I'll back him and I hope that he comes good, but it can't just be him. I think that there are multiple options out there that would be comparable to Belabor. You could argue that Conor Gallagher and Tyler Adams, even though they're a bit older, are they really any worse than Belabor? And worse is a negative tone, I know, but like Belabor's got a lot to prove. So what we basically got this morning is a story coming in from Sky Sports Switzerland, I think it is, that Manchester United are moving for Noah Sadiki, a player that they've been targeting for quite a while. They're very interested in him, and he fits the profile of the sort of player that they're going to look at. Look, we get linked to players all the time, but I think with this, it's very interesting because it's completely out of the blue. It's coming in from Sky Sports Switzerland. It could be a load of nonsense, but it's the sort of story that you can't start a fire without a spark, and it's a spark that makes sense. When you look at, the reason I'm excited about this is not because I think it will happen, not because I think it should happen, but this is what scouting should be. Like, this player has been, look, Sunderland's recruitment in the summer doesn't get spoken about enough. Like, you've got everybody's, constantly, quite rightly, praising the likes of Brighton and Brentford and Bournemouth for their recruitment. In the last 2 seasons, we've seen every team that's come up embarrass themselves and go back down because the gap's too big between the Premier League and the Championship. Sunderland come up, put themselves in the top 4. Okay, they've stabilised a little bit now. They're more top half. They're not going to get relegated. How do you do that? Like, there should be a book written on that because of amazing recruitment. And if you're somebody like Brighton, then, you have that already in place. Sunderland have come up as a newly promoted team. Nobody really fancied them. And suddenly, they've got this really exciting side. And they've bought really, really well. And what I would say about Sadiki is that that's when I'm talking about Man United going for Belabor or Anderson or Wharton, with all due respect, I could get Seb and his cousin to do that over an hour. Go and find me some midfielders that Man United should sign. Because they'd just get their sticker album out, or they'd just go on, very, very basic, stats and go, yeah, these are really good players. We should be scouting better than that, because what if Anderson goes to Man City? What if Belabor is shit and we don't sign him? And what if Stiller goes to Real Madrid and Wharton goes to Chelsea? Where do you go next? And I think for me, this is why Sadiki is very interesting, because at 20 years of age, I think he is 20, he's played like 15 games for Sunderland this season. And although he's classed as a defensive midfielder, just running through some of the stuff, I mean, I'll put my hands up. I've only seen him play probably 2 times. It's not enough for me to say he is the player. I'm not going to pretend that. But what I like about it is that Premier League proven, played a lot of games for a very good Sunderland side, doing very, very well, very, very consistent, and also fits that profile that whilst I'm not totally on board with it, would be perfect for United in this whole buy them young sort of scenario. And also, you just don't know what the fee would be because he only signed for Sunderland in the summer from Union St. Galles, and it was an undisclosed fee. So, sometimes with an undisclosed fee, that means there's some sort of, there's something going on contractually, maybe a release clause is in there or something like that. But look, if you don't know much about him, this is basically a scout report on him. Young, versatile midfielder who obviously has recently signed for Sunderland. Primary position centre mid, but can play as fullback, centre back, demonstrating high tactical flexibility, which I think is very important in an Amorim system. The fact that he could play out wide. I wouldn't be playing him at centre back. I think he's only about 5'10" or might be smaller than that. But certainly you could utilise him as a wing player. I think more and more at Man United we need to recruit players that can play multiple positions. Look, at the end of the day, whether I like it or not, Bruno Fernandes is a 10 playing as an 8. Whether I like it or not, Dalot is a right back playing as a left wing back. I don't think that's what I mean by tactical versatility, but if this lad can play midfield and wing back, and he can do them both really well, I'm thinking like Fabinho at Liverpool. He was somebody that could play centre back, right back, and centre midfield. So that would be really good. He's a high energy ball carrier and disruptor, known for covering a lot of ground and helping to turn defensive situations into offensive progression. His playing style suggests he's well suited to a high intensity system, often playing as the legs or the box to box presence alongside a deeper playmaker midfield. Right footed. Strengths, ball progression, carrying, defensive engagement, disruption, versatility and stamina. Weaknesses, aerial duels, because obviously he's not particularly tall. Goals and assists, not really his job. Passing volume, variety. While his pass completion rate is respectable, his overall passes attempted and progressive passes are not in the highest percentile for his position, suggesting he might not be the primary deep-lying playmaker, but rather a transitional or box-to-box midfielder. Well, in United's system, we play with two pivots. So, look, I don't know what your thoughts are, but that's the sort of thing that when I'm preparing for the morning show and I see it and it's from a reasonable source, I sort of go, well, that's scouting. That's scouting. And already I'm not Scott. Sadiki's the next Kante. Look, that's the sort of deal we should be doing. We need to buy 3 midfielders. If one of them's going to be Elliot Anderson, great, but one of them should be somebody like Sadiki. It makes sense to bring in a player like that. Nationality, I believe he's, let me just double check. I think it's, the Democratic Republic of Congo. So another African player. It's going to be, AFCON, isn't it, if they're in it. But, ultimately, we have 3 players that are going off to the AFCON next week. Would you want them at the club or would you rather have inferior players? I like the look of this. Whether it develops into anything, I don't know, but I like the look of it. And sometimes you just get a good feeling, and there's not a lot I feel good about around Man United, surprise, surprise, at the moment, and I'm very honest about that. But also, I'll be very, very honest, and I would like to think people know this. When I'm excited or interested or, encouraging or, on board, I like to think that comes across as well. And I whether this is true or not, I am on board with that. I think it's an interesting profile of player. The age thing, I sort of, it depends. The trouble is, like, when people talk about age, and there's a few stories I want to talk about in a moment that we've been linked to young players. I think it's about the league they're in and how many games they've had. Like, the next Caicedo, who's coming in from South America and is 17, is very different to a 20-year-old who's played 15 games for Sunderland and is doing really well already. That's established. Then you've got to look at their mentality, etc. But, you can have a 20-year-old who is a better leader and more experienced than a 25-year-old. You can have that. It's about scouting. It's about profile. So, interesting player. Let's see what happens with it. Can we really say Sadiki is Premier League proven? We've seen so many young players like Baleba labelled as Prem proven and disappointed the next season, says Jack. Yeah, and this is a great point, Jack. I mean, you've sort of popped my balloon a little bit, but, you have to as you progress a conversation. Absolutely. I think that it probably wouldn't be a deal we could do in January, if I'm being completely honest. I think this is a summer deal. So, let's be clear, this would not be a January deal, by which time you'd have a greater pool of evidence. I'm not suggesting, this would be a shock if we went for him in January, and I don't know whether we could. considering he only signed in the summer. But yeah, you know, you'd want him to be honest, you'd want him to. This is not about January. You know, January conversation for me, we can go back to that. That's about Conor Gallagher. That's about Conor Gallagher at the moment. You know, or somebody else. That's not about Sadiki. Sadiki for me this is good scouting if it's true. Let's see how he does in the second half of the season. And then let's assess the price and look at it, because Baleba had a good season, but Brighton wanted £100 million. If Sadiki has a good season and Sunderland want 40, it's a very different story, isn't it? A very, very different story. So yeah, I do agree with you on that. Did you see the official Man United app added Rashford to the legend sector in the app, says PX? Yeah, but I think, mate, do you really care what Man United official app does? Do you really think the admins and social media posts of Manchester United's website or app are the oracle of Manchester United? I don't think some of them know their arse from their elbow. I don't think they'd know what a legend was if it shook hands with them. I mean, Marcus Rashford and Bruno Fernandes, you've got... Look, I actually defend them on this, but Manchester United's legends, we haven't had one in over 10 years. You have a young fan base, you have shirts to sell, you have a story to promote. You have to stick Marcus Rashford and Bruno Fernandes in that legend category, simply because if you don't, you're basically admitting the club's on its arse for the last 10 years. You have to put them in there from a marketing point of view. I mean, it's not even a debate point. Do I think Marcus Rashford's a legend? No. Do I think Bruno Fernandes is a legend? No. But I understand why they're there, because you've got to try and make the club relevant in 2025. So you've got to put players that are alive, you know, their careers are alive. You have to do it. It's marketing, simple as that. Morning all, don't want us anywhere near Baleba for 115 million with the way he's playing. If we're bidding, then work must start now, not mid-end of January. Thank you, Tom. Good point. Thank you very much to Jack. Great point. I think the question is, could he play next to Bruno, says Jacob. I don't think anybody can play next to Bruno, to be honest. Other teams seem to be able to recruit players cheap, young and able to adapt quickly to the Premier League. Somehow we can't. You're right, Mark. A club our side should be expecting way more from our scouting. Tom Grant, welcome to the Members Club. Thank you very much for getting your badge in this morning. Great show this morning. I'm feeling the energy. I'm feeling the positivity. And that's not something we can always say, unfortunately. So well done, everybody this morning. Just going back to Patrick's point. Yeah, look, I don't know whether we're going to sign this Sadiki. I hope we do. You know, I quite like the look of it. Let's see how it develops across the season. I don't think it'll be a January deal, but, you know, not everything can be a January deal. However, I think that, you know, Patrick's right, and I was right at the start. The reason I'm encouraged by this is because I think it's proper scouting. I don't think Anderson, Wharton, Baleba is proper scouting. I think it's, you know, is Cunha's proper scouting? Mbeumo, Sesko, you know, Lemens was, to be fair. Yoro a little bit. When have we bought a player that was well scouted? Like, we go for obvious targets, we take a long time to do it, and then we pat ourselves on the back. There's nothing wrong with that. You know, I'm very happy with Cunha and Mbeumo and Dalit and Mazraoui and Sesko. I'm very happy with these signings, but they're not what I call scouting. Scouting is going, that's a good price. He's an interesting player. He's going to be worth a lot more, and he's a hidden gem. And that's where Man United should be looking at that. Dorgu, I agree, but I think that's a bit too controversial, Horizon Gaming, on a Friday morning where everybody's quite positive. But I do agree Dorgu was well scouted, but it's a controversial topic. I think he's a good player. I think the issue with Dorgu, compared to Sadiki, is that Sadiki is playing in the Premier League and knows what it's all about. Dorgu isn't, and that's what I was talking about a few minutes ago. I think we do need to have, if we're going to bring young players in, I think there needs to be an element of hitting the ground running. And, you know, Dorgu, half a season in a relegation Italian side, straight into a Premier League starter in a shit side, there's not going to be a lot of upside in the short term. You know, how do we look after these prospects? And I think sometimes we need a little bit of help from the scouts with regards to who we're looking at. Let's talk about Semenyo, because we'll come back to that, because there was a great point last night calling me a hypocrite, which I'm happy to respond to. But first of all, I want to talk about Semenyo. So, a lot of people this morning talking about Semenyo and Man United should make a bid for him. He's there, it's £65 million. It's available in the first 10 days of January. There's that release clause. People are going to be humming and ahhing about it. We could buy him in the first 10 days of January. We can stick him on the left-hand side. You've got Ahmad, Semenyo. Away you go. Happy days. United are sorted. I don't disagree with that. I don't disagree with it. I think a midfielder needs to come in first, But if you can't get a midfielder, but you really want Semenyo, then sometimes it's like you don't always, the player you buy in a summer transfer window isn't necessarily your priority. Sometimes it's about what can be done. And if United can't find the midfielder they want, then, but the money's there for Semenyo, then you should do it. I'd still say, why didn't we get a midfielder? A lot of people were commenting last night, sort of arguing as if I didn't want Semenyo. That's never been the case. I think he's a very talented player. And I think he's also a player that, like Ahmad, could play wing-back and number 10 and potentially even a striker. Maybe Ahmad could do false 9, but you know what I mean. So it'd be a very interesting signing for Manchester United. But my negativity comes from we've been used by Poundland journalists for about 12 months trying to make out that we were in advanced talks with Semenyo last summer when we weren't. So I have always been quite consistent around Semenyo, and we got told this from the person who told us about Gallagher and Onana and everything else, that United were never in advance with talks with Semenyo. He was on a list, but it never progressed because they wanted Cunha and Mbeumo, and they got Cunha and Mbeumo, and they were never buying 3-10s. They were never going to do that. So whilst Semenyo's really appreciated, they were never going to do that. So when I heard from last April until the end of the summer transfer window, oh, United are in for Semenyo, and people kept pushing it. I was like, it's getting irritating because I know we're not. But as a player, I do like him. Now, we're in a bit of a different situation now. We have Cunha, we have Mbeumo, we're still being linked to him. He's available for £65 million exclusively in the first 10 days of the January transfer window. If United go and do that deal, I'm not going to get up and go, oh, I can't believe it. I'm quitting. I'm off to Australia to backpack across the outback. I'll be like, wow, that's a very interesting signing, isn't it? I mean, that's a first teamer, straight in, down the left-hand side. It changes the profile of how we play because, like Ahmad, he's an attacker. So, wow, this is very interesting. And that would be my reaction. So, look, I would be on board with it. I would be on board with it. Two problems. One, we won't do that deal. We just flat won't do that deal. All I'm hearing from even the credible journalists is Man United admire Semenyo. Of course, they'd like to sign Semenyo. All that is playing the positive game. Of course, we'd love a player like Semenyo. Yeah, we're not dismissing it, but we can't do it. We can't do it. We haven't got the money for it. £65 million release clause means you've got to pay the £65 million, or you've got to negotiate very favourable terms to Bournemouth. We won't have that in January. Also, as I said last night, if you watch football, in my opinion, we're not ready for that. We're not ready for that. And this is where people were arguing in the comments last night. And this is why I wanted to clarify my situation. We can sign Semenyo for £65 million in January. It's there to be done. You can put him as a left wing back. But when, in the last year, or even in the last 6 weeks, have you seen Man United look like a team that's capable of using 2 wide players and leaving 3 centre-backs on their own? We don't do it. We don't do it. We don't have the ball, we go compact, we go to a back 5, and then we counter. If you're going to play with wide players who are wingers, you need to progress your way up the pitch. You need to go from 50% possession to 65% possession. You need to control the ball and get your wingers up the pitch so that they're not having to run so far from being a bloody fullback. When would that be a good time for Man United? When we've got 2 midfielders that allow us to get hold of the ball and keep the ball. And we don't have that at the moment. So I feel that with Semenyo, it's like running before you can walk. He does suit the system really, really well. But why would it suit the system right now when we know, because we watch Ahmad a lot of the time, ends up being a right wing back in his own 6-yard box, defending. Imagine having Semenyo and Ahmad doing that for more than half of the game. So it is part of the evolution, hopefully, but we're not ready for it until we get a midfield that boosts that possession. Because without possession, says Savage, if we go all attack, then we'll get cooked. We've got to be a better possession team. And, people say follow the data. We're a better team if you follow the data. I do follow the data. And our possession stats are crap this season. It's very rarely above 50%. So Semenyo, Makes a lot of sense, but not at the moment. And also, we haven't got the money, so we won't do it. But look, I'd be pleasantly surprised if we did it. He's a really good player, but I think there's two big reasons we won't do it. The first reason is they won't write that check. They won't. Didn't Amorim say he wanted a player like Ahmad on the left, says D. He did. And look, this is what I mean. That would be good, but it would be suicidal from Amorim to do that at the moment. Absolutely. I mean, if you put Semenyo in our team at the moment, a team that doesn't have possession, and look, having him doesn't give us possession. The reason we don't have possession is because of Casemiro and Bruno. We don't keep possession. We're transitioning too quick. But look, I could be proven wrong on that. That's just my theory. However, the big problem is, because we can argue about that all day. Maybe Semenyo comes in, suddenly we're on the halfway line, we're dominating possession, we're swamping teams with Ahmad and Semenyo and Cunha and Mbeumo and Sesko's getting the ball, and it looks brilliant and it sounds brilliant and it would be great and I'd love to see it, and maybe I'm wrong about what I'm saying. But I tell you what I'm not wrong about. There ain't no way United are writing a cheque for 65 million in the first 10 days of the January transfer window. In fact, subtly, we've already been told it's not happening, because 3 journalists this week have said, don't expect Man United to do anything at the start of the window, maybe later on. Well, Semenyo's release clause is at the start of the window. So, read the room. We won't have the money to do anything about it. Alex says, just wait for the last days of the January window. United offer 45 for Semenyo, get rejected, and again say, well, we tried. His, it's only active until 11th of January, and then it doesn't activate again until the summer, apparently. Amorim's not going to change regarding Bruno's position, but I don't understand why he isn't pushing a centre-back into the CDM position when we have the ball. Maybe that will happen more with Martinez. Luke Shaw's a left-back. He doesn't know what he's doing to do that. Yoro's obviously not even in the team at the moment. Maguire's never going to do it. Mazraoui's probably not able to do it. I don't think it's Delit's game. I mean, look, a lot of people get confused why we need to buy a centre-back. Case in point. We play 3 centre-backs and only one of them really knows how to step into the midfield. You need about 3. Not all 3 of them, but if you've got 6 centre-backs, 3 of them need to be able to step into the midfield. We've got 1 at the moment. Luke Shaw tries it. I'll give him credit. He does try it, but he's not very good at it. Martinez is brilliant at it. He can do it when he's in it too. So we probably need another centre-back who can step into the midfield, to be honest. Seth, hope you're doing well this morning. Loving the show this morning. I don't know whether it's because it's Friday. Seth says, United exposes how desperate they are for one area of the pitch. Last season attack, season before defence, now midfield. Everyone upped the price because they can smell our desperation. Well, I always think about this. Seth, and I don't know what your thoughts are, but you're absolutely right. We always know what Man United's problem is for at least 2 years. Like, I know Sancho didn't work, but we needed a right winger for a long time. We didn't even use him on the right wing, which is hilarious, and he's actually a left winger. But, we needed a right winger for a long time. We needed a striker for a long time. We needed a goalkeeper for a long time. Everybody always knows what we need, and at the moment, we don't need 1 midfielder, we need 2. So the whole world of football knows that Man United need a midfielder. The way I operate, and a lot of business people I've come into contact with over my lifetime operate, the good ones don't let people know what they need. They've already solved it before you know. If you're buying a house, you don't walk around going, I want that house, I want that house, E-I-R-D-O, I want that house, I'm bidding next week. That's not how people work. They go, I want that house, put the bid in now, move, quick, let's do, and if I can't do it, I'll move on. It's a great point by Seth, and it really makes sense that we need midfielders. The longer we wait, the more obvious it is. Like, we should have got 1 in the summer. We should have had 1 lined up in the summer. By not doing that, it's very frustrating, but we also signposted that we went for Belaber and Gallagher and didn't get them. So the whole world knows we're desperate for midfielders now. We would be a lot better, and it is Glazeonomics, unfortunately, because everything has to go through them. But imagine what would happen if we were quick. Chelsea, Enzo Fernandez, 2 years ago, in on a player that people thought was going in the summer. Do you think the huge Bruno Glaze stats toppers online is a good thing, in the sense that when we move him to Saudi in the summer, we can get 100 million, says Rajaf? Bruno Fernandes will never lose. We'll never lose on Bruno. Like, he will always be. The Saudis have wanted him for years. Statistically, he's massively sellable. You know, even if everybody in the fan base thinks he's shit, which they don't, he's still massively sellable because he's never injured. He's massively enthusiastic, and his stats, whether you like them or not, speak for themselves. So he's always going to retain value. Thank you very much for that. Done that. Morning, Mark. What do you think about United being linked to Ecuadorian Edison Castillo? It seems that Ecuador is a talent mine. Really interesting. Let me have a quick look on this because there is a player I was going to talk about, and I don't know whether it's him. No. Well, I don't know about him, but we have been linked to Ecuador wingback Nilson Angulo, who is 22-year-old at Anderlecht. We've been linked to him this morning. Price tag around £26 million. We've also been linked to a striker from Strasbourg called Joaquin Panicelli, Argentinian forward who is got 10 goals in 20 appearances for Strasbourg. But obviously Chelsea have a big link with Strasbourg, so I think they'll probably have a better look at him. So look, we're constantly being linked at young players. There's no doubt about it. I spoke about Sadiki earlier, but I do have a problem with it because my big problem at the moment, and I don't think anybody can call it negativity, it's a concern, is that, you know, follow the data if you want, or use your eyes if you want. When was the last player we developed with talent to being talent? We haven't. Rashford's probably the closest one to it. But development isn't just about giving them opportunity on the pitch. It's about moulding them and, you know, making them grow into respectful players that are committed to the club. And for whatever reason, we failed with Rashford on that, didn't we? It's been a bumpy ride the last couple of years. So we fail. It's not just about on the pitch, it's off the pitch as well. We fail. And it worries me that I'm very cynical about the Glazers, of course, and I don't think Sir Jim Ratcliffe's any better. I just think they've seen what Chelsea are doing in relation to mass recruitment of young players and selling them for profit. And they look at the debt and they look at ways to make money and they think, let's just buy a load of young talented players that we can loan out and then sell them. Man City do it very well. Man City picked £20 million for a player that never touches their first team because they buy them, they bring them, they promote them, they put them on loan in the Championship, they do really, really well, and they sell them for 15, 20 million quid. Never touch the first team. So I think that, you know, that's what worries me about this, because on the one hand, it's great if you've got 6 or 7 or 8 players that are coming through over the next 3 or 4 years, but we've shown no evidence that we can develop players. I think Sesko, Dorgu and Yoro are my great hopes, because if those 3 players can turn into good first team players for Man United, then all these other players that are coming through, there's big hope. So it's not a flat, this is a mistake. It's just a concern that we're buying all these young players and we're crap at nurturing and promoting them. And maybe that can change, but you know, it is a concern. Which reminds me, love the way you replied, Mark. Happy holidays, says Seth. No worries, you too, pal. Archer says, we have players to create the chances, but they don't take risks because our midfield lacks control. Imagine if Cunha and Mbeumo, Ahmad or our striker could take more risks. We need more control. In relation to Cunha, get the ball into his feet, because I'm already starting to see, even after the Wolves game, I mean, I don't have the direct quote in front of me, so I'm not going to speculate, but I found Amorim's comments about Cunha after the Wolves game quite negative, and it's happened before. It's not like what he said about Dorgu or you know what he's done with Yoro, but it was almost a little bit like, I can't remember what he said after the Wolves game, and I'm not going to speculate because it's not fair, but I definitely perceived it in a slightly negative way. Almost like he's trying too hard, you know, almost like it's not clicking. And I felt like going, well, I didn't because I didn't ask the question, but I do feel with Cunha that if you watch the channel a lot, there are recurring conversations. And we have been saying about Cunha for 3 months now, he's not getting the ball into feet. And when I was watching Wolves last season, you know, this was a guy that clearly kept Wolves up last year. Like, they're so bad. How did they stay up last year? Well, Cunha was a massive part of that. So, You know, I know there's been a little bit of change, but they are one of the worst teams I've ever seen. I mean, take the 3 points and we'll take them again just before the new year, but they're absolutely terrible. So imagine how good Cunha was last year to keep that team up. But what they were doing is getting the ball in. I mean, you look at the way Wolves played on Monday night. They weren't hitting long balls. They were trying to play through and get the ball into people's feet. Get the ball into Cunha's feet. He's got amazing close control. He can spin and turn. I don't see us doing that. So you can be critical of Cunha, but it's a little bit like being critical of a goalkeeper when you tie one arm behind their back. You know, you've got to, you've got to feed him. You know, I think that's something that I definitely would say. I'm going to remind you all a bit earlier today. Please do smash a like on the video. We're doing crap for likes on videos at the moment. We have at least 8,000 people watching here. 7,500, sorry. 500 likes. Please do smash a like on the video every day that you watch. Morning, Mark. What do you think about... I've done that one as well. Right, I'm a hypocrite. I'm a hypocrite. Well, I'm a hypocrite anyway, because Jack says... you missed... I think you skipped my super chat, Jack said. Yeah, it was rubbish, Jack. That's why I did it. I didn't really. Here it is. He said, is that £65 million not better off being invested into the midfield? A player like Anderson needs to be in our midfield if we want to challenge for the top four. Look, all I'm saying is, I like Semenyo. We won't do the deal, and I don't think it's the right time to buy a left wing back before you buy midfielders who can give you possession. So I completely agree with you. But if we signed Semenyo in the first 5 days of January, I wouldn't be sat there going, what are we doing? I'd go, bloody hell, that's exciting. Even though I have misconceptions about whether it's the right signing right now, it would be amazing, but we won't do it. Just wait for the last days that I've done that one as well. Okay, do you think that could imply us selling Amas, says Jacob? Oh, I don't want to bring the mood down. I don't want to bring the mood down this morning, but I'm telling you now, Harry Amas leaving Man United. I'll give you the percentage in a minute because it fits in about what Andy Mitten said about Mainoo. I'll come back to that. Right. Last night, in the comments, somebody said, you're a hypocrite, Mark, because you've been going on about United signing Gallagher this morning and why you think it's a good thing, and then you've just said Tyler Adams isn't the sort of player that is going to strike fear into the opposition. There's no difference between Adams and Conor Gallagher, so why are you pro Gallagher but opposed to Adams, you hypocrite? And I thought, you know what? They're not a moron. They've just not listened. They've not thought, because on the face of it, I thought fair play, very fair play, because I'm going to bring it into the show now. But if you listen to what I said, I'm not a hypocrite, right? Because what I said is that Man United have held talks with Conor Gallagher about a move in January. That was yesterday's morning show. And then I said, of course, I would take Conor Gallagher over nothing. And if he's the only option in the midfield in January, let's do it. Of course, you want a little bit of a, kickback, that maybe a loan with an obligation to buy, that if it doesn't work, we pay Atletico Madrid a couple of million and they take him back and then they sell him somewhere else. I'm comfortable with that. Actually signing him in January is a little bit risky, but the loan with an obligation to buy, let's do it. He's 25, he's Premier League proven, I think he's a good player, and he's got a lot to prove. I don't see the negatives in doing that deal at all in those circumstances. Tyler Adams is double the price and a summer signing. That's what I'm talking about. You've got to take the context of half the price in January with the potential to send him back if it doesn't work, against double the price, permanent deal in the summer. So it's not hypocritical. I agree with you that maybe there's not a lot between Conor Gallagher and Tyler Adams, but the circumstances are night and day. We need a midfielder in January. We're not going to be signing Tyler Adams unless we want to play 3 times the price, but we can sign Conor Gallagher, potentially on a loan with an obligation to buy, straight away comes into the team. Tyler Adams, 6 months down the line, double the price, doesn't come in January. So that's why I'm positive about Conor Gallagher and reluctant about Tyler Adams, because in the summer, that's where we're meant to be going for the likes of, the big signings. So that's what I meant by that. With regards to either player, if Tyler Adams was available on a loan obligation to buy in January, I'll run a poll. Which one do you want? I don't really mind, because if it's Tyler Adams or nobody in January, I don't think he's a bad player. I just don't think he's a summer signing. The summer signing can't be Conor Gallagher or Tyler Adams. The summer signing needs to be significant. But in January, we need a midfielder, and you go and get the best that you can get. And I think there's a real opportunity there with Conor Gallagher. Robert McCormack says he won't bench Casemiro for either. Robert, sometimes you're right and sometimes you're wrong, just like me. I don't think we can... I think if Amorim gets the player he wants, Casemiro will go to the bench. I don't think he's totally obsessed with Casemiro. I really don't. He didn't pick him for the first 2 months, and then he realised Casemiro's better than Agate, and now he picks him all the time. I don't think he's locked in on Casemiro. I think he sees Casemiro's weaknesses. I mean, he took him off against West Ham, didn't he, quite early? So I think the problem is he thinks Casemiro's better than Agate. And he may well be right. And he doesn't want to play Mainoo there. So I think if you had a player that he wanted, whether that's Conor Gallagher or Manu Kone or whatever, I think we'd see Casemiro playing less. I do. Talk about Amas, Mark. Okay, well, look, the context of this, I only saw this last night after I'd finished the show. So this was Andy Mitten talking about what he thinks is going to happen with Mainoo. And look, there's a lot of things these journalists say that I think is fed from the club, and you can take it with a pinch of salt. But this I found quite interesting because I think a lot of us are sort of skirting around the issue here. And look, what I will say about Andy Mitten is that, you know, he's been around the club for a very long time, and especially around this sort of thing, you know, I know how it works. We had our little bit of information yesterday. We've had little bits. I know how it works, and he's been at it a lot longer. So I wouldn't dispute this being true at all. He said, on Mainoo's future in the summer, unfortunately, I don't think it looks good for him. Manchester United are looking for 2 midfielders, and that will not be a good thing for Mainoo. I'm pretty bleak about the future for him as a Manchester United player. So it's not just what's going to happen in January. There is this feeling in the club quite clearly that even if he stays in January, he'll be gone in the summer. And even if he goes on loan in January, he'll be gone in the summer. And that's a different mindset to get your head into, because I think there are people out there, probably myself included, who think if he goes on loan and he does really well, that proves Amorim wrong. He comes back in the summer and he gets back in the team. Seems to be a train of thought. If he goes out on loan and does well, that's a pathway to selling him. Much the same as what we did with Anthony, much the same of what we did to Rashford. So this, whatever's going to happen, feels like it's going to be a pathway to an exit. I think the only thing that's going to save Amorim, save Mainoo, is if Man United don't qualify for you. Look, let me map it out for you. Mainoo goes out on loan in January. There's 3 scenarios. Mainoo is not allowed to go in January and, you know, leaves in the summer totally pissed off. Mainoo goes out on loan in January, does well, but Man United qualify for Europe, comes back, Amorim doesn't want him, he gets sold. Mainoo goes out on loan in January, does well, Amorim gets sacked because he doesn't get Europe, Mainoo plays under the new manager. I think there's 3 options, scenarios there. 2 of them end with Mainoo being sold in the summer. And let's not forget who our owners are. Let's not forget who our loyalty should be to. The club, not the owners, not the manager, not the player. The way the owners operate, that's pure profit. Pure profit. They can put him out on loan in January, knowing Amorim wants to sell him. He can go out and prove himself, increase his value, cash in the summer. He just made 30, 40, 50 million pounds profit. So, look, that's coming in from the club, clearly, that there is a general feeling that Mainoo's going to not be a Man United player next season, which I think is very sad. And also, to bring in Harry Amas, because I was asked about what do you think is going to happen with Amas. Honestly, I would like to think he's going to come back to Manchester United and be utilised as a left wing back. However, if you're asking me what I think is going to happen, I think you've got a player there that's doing really well at a club that's not doing really well in the Championship. He's shining every week. They love him at Sheffield Wednesday. In the summer, Is he going to be ready to be Man United's left wing back? Is he going to be ready to be sold for £5-10 million with a sell-on clause? And I think this is the road we're heading down. I'm not 100% sure on that, and I hope I'm going to be wrong. But the way I think this club is heading, I think we're going to see a lot of this cashing in on young players where it's pure profit. Because I don't think Amas will be ready next season to start for Man United as much as I would like it. So you'll have a player that's had a really good season in the Championship that wants to keep playing. Do you loan him to a Championship club again? Do you loan him to a lower Premier League club? Or do you cash in? And I think they might cash in at some point. Because I think that's the sort of way that we might be heading. But I really do hope I'm wrong on that. But we've got, what about the young lad from Paraguay, Leon? I heard his agent talking yesterday about how they don't think he's going to go on loan anymore and he's going to continue to develop in the under-21s. And I'm like, and he was trying to make it out it was a positive. He was trying to talk about it like it's a positive. It's better for his development to continue in the under-21s. And I'm like, it's definitely not, mate. It's 100% better for you to be playing professional men's football in the Championship than playing under-21s football. But it doesn't look like he's heading out on loan now, which means he's 6 months behind. Obi isn't out playing first team football. He's in the under-21s, I think, as well. So, look, there's nothing wrong with training with the first team and playing with the under-21s. But what Amas is doing, that's the step up. That's playing first team football against, proper teams. And we're not doing it. He's the only one really doing it at the moment. The Guy podcast says, I like the idea of Tyler Adams. I feel like the hate he's getting from fans being looked at is because he's American. I've not seen any hate, mate. And hopefully there isn't any hate because I don't think he's a bad player. I just was like, I think it got maybe a little bit misinterpreted last night that he's as a summer signing, that's not the signing I would look to do. That's basically what I was saying. As a summer signing, I want better than that, and that's all I was saying. As a summer signing, I want better than that. If he was coming in January, then maybe I would look at that, but not as a summer signing. I think we need better than that. Old United could call this a throwaway season and focus on the summer, but a throwaway season used to be third place. We need Europe and we need it now, says Slazy. Look, I did see something. Nearly 8,000 watching, and we've still not hit 1,000 likes, you lazy shits. I can't believe it. I can't believe that. I've got 8,000 people watching and we've got 924 likes. How hard is it to click a like button? I thought we were having a good stream. Don't you like, what are you doing? Having a crap and you don't even like it. It's just there in the background. Come on. But no, seriously, 8,000 watching. Very, very good. Remember, we've got the Amorim press conference at lunchtime as well. We'll be reacting to that as well. We've got Bundesliga match tonight on That's Football. But we do have an 8 o'clock show with Terry as well. He's not been on this week, so it'll be very interesting to see what he's got to say too. And then, obviously, United are playing on Monday night. Got a preview coming up tomorrow. I think I'm going to put that up tomorrow, maybe later on today. Depends when I get a chance to work on that. But in terms of United failing talents, as simply read, can we acknowledge Mason Greenwood going on to be top 4 goals assist in Europe, only behind Kane, Erling, and Mbappe? Speaks volumes, as simply read. I think Mason Greenwood's such a difficult conversation to have. I've seen a lot of it. Look, we reacted to that when it happened. We reacted to it when he was not guilty, when it didn't go to court. We reacted to it when they sold him. So I'm never going to go, well, we're not going to talk about it. It's contentious. I saw some people this week saying he should get called up for England. And the backlash was massive. Pictures of what happened or allegedly happened. The audio clips were out there again. People were going absolutely crazy about it. And all I would say about Mason Greenwood is, unfortunately, whether we like it or not, the minute it didn't go to court and got dropped, it goes into the court of public opinion. And once you're in the court of public opinion, it's a nasty place. And it doesn't even matter whether it's right, fair or wrong, or justice, or whatever you want to call it. He will always be associated with that. So I find it very difficult to talk about because it's like the chat goes away from what we're meant to be, which is a football community. What I will say, and I don't care what anybody says about this, what I will say is before that incident, I used to call him a generational talent. We had Mason Greenwood, Anthony Martial and Marcus Rashford as a front three that scored over 50 Premier League goals. And I think it all feeds into the same. And I know for a fact as well, in relation to that player and certain other players, I think we've seen it with Brandon Williams as well, the club failed them in other areas in relation to keeping them on the straight and narrow. There was a lot of things going on at Man United during COVID that shouldn't have been going on. And Man United have been ridiculously bad at dealing with young players in their off-field activities for a very long time. And certain players that have recently left, certain players that are still here, it's been going on for a very long time. Now, comparable to Sir Alex Ferguson, who would turn up at house parties if he heard one of his young players was there, who knew all the landlords if one of his players went in, to how Man United's run now, the question is, why are we so bad at something we used to be ridiculously good at? You know, just because it's 2025 doesn't make it acceptable to be in a nightclub at 3 o'clock in the morning doing whatever, you know? And, you know, Toon says it's not a prison. No, mate, it's a competitive sport where elite footballers win prizes. And we've got 8,000 people watching the United fan community. It matters. You know, it's not Sunday morning with your mates playing pub football. You know, if I was the manager of the Dog and Duck and you turned up and you said, I've been out last night doing this, that and the other, I wouldn't go, well, you know, you're not playing. I'd say, can you play? But this is Manchester United and we've been run badly for a very long time. And it's not just recruitment, it's not just wages, it's the way we do not nurture our players off the field in the right way. We don't set the standards, we don't set professionalism. Some of these young players should have had their contracts ripped up. Don't care whether you think you're good or not, you're out. That's below the standards we want. Go and play for Leyton Orient, you know? I'm not slagging Leyton Orient off, but if you know a player is out drink driving or, you know, breaking curfew, going to parties, this, that and the other, I'm not saying those things have happened, and even if it did, you don't know who I'm talking about. United should be dealing with that, but they didn't. They didn't deal with it. And they haven't been dealing with it. We haven't set the standards that need to happen. Old United, I've done that one. Look, I want to just mention this because we're coming towards the end of the show. This made me laugh today. And this is just, you know, this is the mainstream in a clip, right? Sky Sports News put it out last night. Peter Stevenson, insight at Manchester United's training ground. Positive mood around Man United training. There's a very good chance that Man United will go into 2026 in the top 4. I'm just laughing at it. Like, that's not a direct quote from Bruno Fernandes or Ruben Amorim or anybody associated with Man United. That's Sky Sports doing a clip at the training ground saying there's a very good chance that Man United will be in the top 4 in 2026. And you think, you know, these are the same outlets that only a few weeks ago were talking about what manager's going to replace Ruben Amorim and will Amorim be sacked by Christmas. And it's like, you know, sometimes the media can be very useful, but sometimes they're an absolute head loss. Like, Ned Stark FC, what are you talking about? Like, you've been trying to sack our manager for weeks, and now you're hypothetically putting us into the top 4 for New Year's Day. And I'm like, hold on a minute. How does that work then? Because one, we've taken 1 point from 6 against Everton and West Ham in our last 2 league games. How the hell are you putting us hypothetically into the top 4? You know, serious. I mean, and look. And also, last time I checked, we've got to go to Aston Villa and we've got to play Newcastle after Bournemouth. I don't know. It's laughable how funny they are, because before New Year, our easiest game is Wolves. We don't play Leeds and Burnley until after New Year. So our next 4 games, Bournemouth at home, which I think is winnable. Villa away, which I think we will win, but only because we've got a good record against them. They're actually a very good team. Newcastle at home, I think will be difficult. And then Wolves at home, I think we'll win. So, you know, we'd have to win to be in the top 4 you'd need Chelsea and Palace and Villa. Well, we won't catch Villa. They're on 30. Unless we beat Villa. But you know what I mean? It's not easy to put us in the top 4. And yet, there's a very good chance Man United will be in top 4 in early 2026 or going into 26. I don't even remember if it was early or going into 26. No, there's a very good chance that Man United will go into 2026 in the top 4. What are you talking about? And this is what I mean. You've got to call it out, because what it is subconsciously dropping in an incredible achievement like it's expected. So while that works is you go, there's a very good chance that Man United will go into the new season, there's a very good chance Man United will go into the new year in the top 4. People listen to that and go, Man United are going to be in the top 4 on New Year's Day. New Year's Day comes along, Man United are 8th. Oh, God! It was so easy for them to be in the top 4 and they're 8th. Get him out! Get him out! And it's like, look, I don't care where we are on New Year's Day. If we're in the top 4, I don't think we'll necessarily be there at the end of the season. And if we're 8th, it doesn't mean we won't be in the top 5 at the end of the season. We, as Amorim has said, I want him to be here till the end of the season, but I think it's going to be a rocky ride, a roller coaster, and who knows? We've been very unpredictable this season. We had very good home form before we played Everton and West Ham. Let's hope we can pick it up again on Monday night. Away from home, you never know what you're going to get. We're very erratic. We've got a January transfer window. I would hope, actually, just to clarify, I hope we're not in the top 4 on January the 1st. I hope we are 7th, within touching distance, because I think if we're in the top 4 in January, the club will go, we don't need to spend. We don't need to spend. We're already there. We're right. We obviously are a top 4 team because we're top 4. I think it might be a bad thing about that. What's the Scholes comment? I know he said at the start of the week that Mainoo should go and sign for Chelsea, but let me have a quick look. I probably should be able to find it for you. I can't see anything. About it. That's my clip about Sadiki. Oh, here we go. Manchester United is about risk and entertainment more than anything. Having fans on the edge of their seat, ready to go. Wingers who beat people, shots on goal, bits of skill. There's nothing there that's from the club. We talk about this as a different club. They've got Omar Berrada, Jason Wilcox, who are probably brilliant at their job and what they do, but they're not Man United. They don't have a clue what it's like to be by a Man United player. Mate, it's almost like an echo. I literally said this myself. Literally said this last weekend. Like, I can't argue with that. Like, I've literally said it myself. And I'll be honest, when it's the ex-players, I do try to sort of pick holes in what they're saying because I don't think they always speak correctly. But I think that's absolutely spot on. I mean, Manchester United is about risk and entertainment more than anything. For me, it always has been about wingers who, beat people and, bits of skill. And I don't recognise Man United and I haven't recognised this for 10 years. But I do agree with them about Berrada and Wilcox. Sure, they are very good at their job, but they're not Man United people. They don't know what a Man United player is. And I think for some people it's not important. For some of it's really important. Who we are, what we stand for is really important. Some of us in our lives as well. My granddad's no longer here. He got me into Manchester United. But also as a person, there's so much about him that I admired that you want to bring, you want to, pass that on. It's the same with your football club. I wouldn't like to support a football club that changes its identity every 10 years. And, this is why it's so important to us. And, I don't see anybody in that football club that knows what it's all about. I certainly do not respect Sir Jim Radcliffe as a lifelong fan because he doesn't actually behave like one. The Glazers, forget it. Amorim's come in from Portugal. I don't mind. He's a manager. That's fine. You learn. Sir Alex came from Aberdeen. But CEO and Wilcox and Favell, what have they got to do with Man United? It's almost like they're coming in with a playbook going, this is what I think we should do, this is what we should do. But they're not Man United people. But look, that's not important for some people. It's not. But I think it's a great point. I'm waiting for the end of the season to see what we really are. There'll be up and downs along the way, and if Amorim in top 4 at the end, well done, says Ray. Absolutely, bloody exactly, Ray. And I hope you're doing well. I completely agree. Hopefully we can. Well, if we're going to be successful, we've got to build a new Man United, haven't we? That's what we've got to do. We've got to start playing well. We've got to start winning. We've got to show a vision, and we've got to build something new, which is obviously their strategy. United, we already know this. United's plan is to rip up the past and build something new. They're turning their back on Man United people. They're not interested in Man United people. We've had that feedback personally. They're not interested in fans' opinion or previous players or what United used to be. They're very blinkered, they're very stubborn, and they're very much, we're doing it our way. If it works, they'll reap the benefits. Can we just appreciate Rasmus right now for being available every game? Shouldn't have been treated the way he did. He played alongside rubbish, says the real Red Stand. Yeah, but he has been injured, definitely. Rajaf, Greenwood strike in the Leicester game was fire. John United says, we can't keep everyone. The pathway from the academy to the first team needs to be tougher. Players shouldn't be making the bench just to protect a record. Thank you very much. Okay, well, thanks everyone for watching this morning. Really appreciate it. Fantastic show. Majority, very, very positive. Really enjoyed it. Don't forget, we've got Amorim's press conference at 1:30. Reaction will be about 20 to 2. We'll go live straight away after that. Be very interesting to see what he's got to say around injuries, and I'm sure he'll get some questions. Look, even I would say, is there any point asking him a question about Mainoo? But we know what these journalists are like. I'm sure he will get that. Speak to you all a little bit later. Take care. Remember, we've got Bundesliga tonight at 7:30 as well. So if you want to join us on That's Football for that, you can do. We're going to be in the studio for that one actually today. Leipzig, Union Berlin. Some good young players to keep an eye on there. Hopefully United will have some scouts watching that because, as I said, Sadiki's an interesting player. Take care, everyone. Thanks, everybody who liked the video. Thank you to all 1,500 of the 7,700 who smashed the like button. Thank you very much, legends. But thank you to all of you who watched and everybody who's watching not live. I'll speak to you all in a bit. Take care.